Episode 67. Let's do it. Welcome to the Hack Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Barnes, providing right now solutions to some of your biggest teaching and learning problems. Now, let's hack learning. When I finally realized that kids will become independent, enthusiastic learners if they are part of a non-threatening community, I threw out everything that most teachers consider classroom management. That is a quote from today's guest, Casey Avey, a teacher in Manhattan, Kansas, a special education teacher. And Casey is joining us today to discuss something that I think is so crucial and that we don't talk nearly enough about in education, and that is integrating core values into everyday teaching and learning. So in that open, you heard me take a quote from Casey's blog, and we'll talk more about what she does and what she writes and all about core values. But you heard me take that quote where she talked about changing, and that's so big for hack learning because that's what we do. We learn from our mistakes, we deal with pushback, and we get better. And her change is crucial to teaching and learning because it integrates core values. And we're going to let Casey tell you more. Casey Avey, thanks for joining us today on the Hack Learning Podcast. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Awesome. Thank you for having me this morning. Greetings from Manhattan, Kansas. I'm a special education teacher. This is my 22nd year, and I work with kiddos predominantly having emotional needs that are greater than traditional students that keep them from the learning environment that we're most commonly familiar with.
Fantastic. And I can't believe you've been teaching 22 years. I've seen your picture, and you certainly don't look old enough to have been teaching 22 years. So obviously the kids have been good to you, and the profession's been good to you, and that's fantastic. So Casey, I want to talk a little bit about this and get right to the problem. So we do problem, hack the problem, and what you can do tomorrow, solutions, and I want to dive right in. So tell us a little bit about the problem that you see regarding classroom management and teaching around core values and things like that. What is our problem?
Well, the problem in my classroom was we had a set of rules and beliefs, but they were predominantly designed by me for the classroom. And so I had a problem with a feeling of cohesiveness or allegiance. And one of my students said, well, can't we have some say in this as well? And at first I thought, no, this is my class. And then I got to thinking that, no, of course, it's all of our classes. And if I can provide some ownership with the students and become more of a family belief, then some of the classroom management pieces will take care of themselves. And that's exactly what has happened.
Oh, that's fantastic. I hear some really important words in there. Ownership, for one, and family. And
that's our hashtag keyword this year. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's so rare to hear that in education, unfortunately. And I think that conversations like these and the things you're writing about on your blog and things like this really help us bring these important things to light, that we don't always have to be about the textbook and the workbook and so much about our lessons, that sometimes we can talk about the values that make us good people. So tell us a little bit about that, Casey. The hack. So if you described that problem beautifully and said, it was a problem that to some degree you created. And I think teachers create these kinds of problems too because we're so driven to teach that sometimes we forget about other things that make kids better. So tell us how you've hacked that problem.
Well, what's been great about the core values is that they have come into every aspect of the classroom. Creativity has helped us write grants and do some projects as a class that have brought us together and expanded their horizons in ways that I never could have done with a traditional curriculum or reading textbooks or anything like that. Using, grit and respect, those are words that the kids will use with each other. I'll catch them in the hallway and using those. We changed our homework in my classroom to where all of our homework is around the core values. So they might perform service is another one of our core values, and they might perform a service at home, whether that's picking up paper or helping a parent with a chore. So we've kind of thrown out homework, which is a whole nother post, but everything that we do centers around the core values, whether it's in the school or outside of the school, whether it's evaluations home, whether it's IEP goals, they all are centered around this year's set of core values that the students helped design.
And tell us specifically, what are some of those core values that you're working so hard to focus on in your classroom?
Got it. The core values underlie everything that we do. They are creativity, service, which is doing things for other people, grit, self-awareness, respect, leadership, and then the kids' favorite is weirdness, just having fun. We so often forget to have fun.
Weirdness, we would call that hacky here in the hack learning world. Love the weirdness piece as well. And there's so much there that kids struggle with. And I think that we really don't do enough with it. How do your kids react when you tell them that you're going to have this whole sort of core values curriculum, for lack of a better word, or this whole format in your class of emphasizing these core values? What's their initial reaction?
Well, they were the ones that are the most positive with it because it actually means something to them. They know what grit means, and they know when they struggle with it, and they know their goal for the week is to dig deep when something is hard for them, because there are so many things that are hard for us and they want to give up. And I open myself up to this too and say, man, I didn't show very, very good grit today when I got frustrated that this happened. We open our day with ups and downs, which is where we all share, even the adults in the room, things that are going well and the things that aren't. And we try to tie those back to the core values as well. Like my up was that I did service over the weekend by helping out at the food bank, or I didn't show very good self-awareness when I responded in this way to my husband, which unfortunately probably happens more than it should. And the kids can see that we're people too, and that's so important for the bonding and the family relationship, especially at middle school where they're just starting to kind of figure themselves out, and then even more so in special education where we're really needing to wrap around them completely.
Yeah, I find that so much of what you say overlaps with so much that is hack learning, and it's great. You're talking about teachers seeming real to them, and we just talked to my good friend and hack learning author Jim Sturdivant, who does hacking engagement, and that's his big thing. One of his favorite quotes is, "Teachers got to be real. If they don't seem real, kids won't engage." So by you using your own example and saying, I made a mistake. Kids love that, and we just talked about that not long ago in another episode of Hack Learning, talking about My Bad and the things you do from the popular podcast My Bad, the things you do that you need to share with kids, because we have to show them that we're real, that we make mistakes, and I hear so much of that in here, and I love it. So, Casey, in a moment here, we want to go to the segment of the show that I think, and I've heard from people, is the most popular. And it's the most popular in hack learning books, and that is that what you can do tomorrow. Because educators come to us to solve problems and to do it without a 5-year plan. Something that they say, I don't need a lot of research, I don't need a whole lot of philosophy. I want to go into the classroom tomorrow, and I want to do something that will make a difference. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about that, and I want to talk about today's sponsor, Kiddom. Hey, education hacker, Kiddom helps teachers turn personalized learning from a buzz phrase to reality. With Kiddom, teachers gain access to an unlimited library of standards-aligned content with beautiful, actionable reports. The best part is, Kiddom is 100% free. Check it out today. Go to kiddom.co/hacklearning to start engaging your students one-on-one. That's kiddom.co/hacklearning. And one of the things I love about Kiddom is it gives students a space to show their work, and it creates an environment where students and teachers can carry on a conversation about learning and about anything online. And that conversation has to involve core values. And we've been talking with Casey Avey today, and she has a class in Manhattan, Kansas, where they work with core values every day. And I'm truly fascinated by the idea of sort of underpinning everything you do in teaching and learning with core values. And Casey has helped us to understand the problem and how we get too caught up sometimes in the curriculum and in old school classroom management, and she's hacked that problem by telling us that if we integrate these core values and we outline them for kids and we remind them constantly of these, that we can change everything in our classroom. So Casey, give us what I know our audience is waiting for, some what you can do tomorrow strategies. If I go into my classroom and say, I want to teach my kids core values and I want to practice those core values because it makes us all better, how do I start?
Got it. Good question. What we do at the start of the school year with my class is we sit down and make a timeline of events of our life. And I ask them to pick, a few events that would define them that someone might put in their obituary, or if someone was writing a biography about them, what they might include. And they might be positive things and they might be negative things. And these kiddos are in middle school, so they don't have a whole lot, but they do, a lot of them, you'd be surprised with the experiences they pull from. And then we assign emotions to those events based upon how they made us feel. And then we go a step further and we put some values that we might attach to those. My parents got a divorce. How did that make me feel? What value was taken away from me when I felt that? Or I got a spelling bee award in the 3rd grade, and what value did I attach to that? What did I have to do? And when we kind of compile a list together, because a lot of them will fall under the same, category, and we like to keep our core values 5 to 7. This year we have 7 just because the kids wanted to add respect in there. They thought that was really important, and I didn't want to waver from that. And so those are the things we look at. And so we look at the positive things that really help us feel good and how to avoid some of those negative things. And the list just compiles, and then we kind of come up with a working definition. And then using those words every day for everything really makes the biggest difference. The kids it becomes a second nature. You can ask any one of my kids at any time, self-awareness, and they will not necessarily spout off the definition, but they'll tell you how they did a great job with self-awareness today, or what maybe they could have worked on.
So you tell that story, you get the kids to sort of expound upon how they're feeling, for one. What makes me feel good? What are things that upset me? How do I navigate those things? And you put those in a list. And what I'm hearing, too, whether you use the word or not, is reflection. You said any time you ask that kid about self-awareness, that student can say, well, I'm self-aware because. Wow, that reflection piece is really incredible. So, and then I hear we're building it out by it's capacity building, that we're constantly aware of these core values. We're constantly talking about the core values. So again, Casey, let me just back up one step and say, again, I've never done anything in my class with core values. So let's assume that, I'm a by-the-book teacher. And I hope a lot of those are listening today, because there's so much here that can change us for the better. I'm that teacher, though. I walk in and it's, textbook and workbook and mini lesson, lecture, whatever. And I think, wow, this sounds good. And I heard a lot there about, writing things down, telling a story, whatever. Give me the one thing. Let's say I've got 15 minutes tomorrow. I say, you know what, this sounds really cool, but man, I'm really pinched for time. But I bet I could give 15 minutes. If I'm starting to emphasize core values tomorrow and I have 15 minutes, what should I do?
I would probably pick one value that really holds a lot to you and modeling it to those students, the positive things about it, and maybe where you are as a person with that. So they can start to see you as the person. And, oh man, she struggles with self-awareness or grit or whatever that is, and start with one of those. It may not be one of your classroom core values as you make a list and as you delve further, but having those conversations, those open conversations with students, to me is the very first thing that you do to get that relationship to where they'll open up and ask you questions and ask more and want to know more. They always want to know more, and what I struggle with and what I do well, and they're pretty they can be pretty complimentary, but they'll catch me on a daily basis. And I think it's great because I mess up all the time, and I love that they see me as a person. That's probably the first thing to do. Oh,
that's amazing stuff. Yeah, that they see you as a person. So I love that. So if we come away with anything from this amazing brief podcast episode, so many people tell me that they listen to Hack Learning on the way to work, and I love that. So if you're driving into school today and you're thinking, I can spare 10 to 15 minutes. What's one thing I can do to make my kids better and to integrate core values? I'm hearing here that it's so easy. Start with one of your own. What an amazing thing. Something that's important to you, that you value. Even as Casey says, if it doesn't become a part of your ultimate list that you put together with kids, you're modeling a core value. And what else could we do that's better than that? Casey, Avi, this has been a fabulous conversation. I love what you're doing and what your kids are doing. And I know you've got some amazing pictures out there that you can share, and you're writing about this on your blog. Tell our listeners where they can find that, how they could connect with you if they had any questions about core values. How do we connect?
Got it. My website is drewyams.com, and you can find me at Twitter at drewyams.
Outstanding. And we will, of course, as we always do, link those on the show notes. It'll be very easy for people to click on over and to find you. Casey, Avi, I can't think of anything better than core values in the classroom, and this has been a marvelous conversation. So appreciate you visiting us today.
Thank you so much.
As always, we continue the conversation at #HackLearning on Twitter and on the show notes page at hacklearningpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.